The lights of Arthur Ashe Stadium blazed brighter than ever. The 23,771-seat venue, the largest tennis stadium in the world, was packed to capacity. Thousands of Filipino flags waved in the stands, a sea of red, white, blue, and yellow stretching from the front rows to the highest rafters. The chants of Laban, Alex, echoed through the stadium like thunder. But this wasn't a Grand Slam final. This wasn't even a main draw match. This was an exhibition. Stars of the Open, a showcase of the sport's most exciting young talents, held during US Open Fan Week on August 27th. The event featured four of the most exciting young stars in tennis: Alexandra Eala, Joao Fonseca, Iva Jovic, and Lerner Tien. All four players have captivated crowds around the world while achieving already great heights despite all being aged 21 and younger. On paper, it was supposed to be a friendly exhibition, a chance for fans to see the future of tennis before the main draw began. A portion of the ticket proceeds would go to the USTA Foundation, supporting the National Junior Tennis and Learning Network. It was a night of celebration, of fun, of giving back. But when Alexandra Eala walked onto the court, the atmosphere turned electric. Her opponent was Iva Jovic, the world number 14, the 18-year-old American sensation who had beaten Eala twice in 2026. At the French Open, Jovic had won 6-4, 6-2. At the HSBC Championships at Queen's Club, she had dominated 6-2, 6-2. The head-to-head record was 2-0 in Jovic's favor. The tennis world expected more of the same. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Iva Jovic couldn't handle her. The friendly exhibition became a statement, a declaration, a moment that would echo through the tennis world long after the final point was played. Eala, now world no. 18, entered the match with a different weight on her shoulders. No longer a breakthrough-hungry upstart, but a legitimate contender expected to make noise in New York. And she delivered. The US Open had learned its lesson from the Australian Open, where organizers had placed Eala on court 6 and had to turn away thousands of fans. This time, Eala was on the biggest court in tennis, and the crowd went absolutely wild. To understand why this exhibition match mattered so much, you have to understand the relationship between Alexandra Eala and Iva Jovic. It is a story of friendship, rivalry, and two young stars on parallel paths to greatness. Eala, 21, is the world number 18 and the highest-ranked Filipino player in WTA history. She holds one WTA title, which she won at the DC Open earlier this month. A stunning victory over a stacked field that included Alina Svitolina, Naomi Osaka, and world number 3 Jessica Pegula. She has been the WTA's big ticket over the last 2 years, packing venues in every city she's played and drawing an entirely different demographic from the sports-crazed Philippines to the tennis world. Jovic, 18, is the world number 14 and the youngest player ranked in the WTA Top 20. She holds one WTA title, which she won at the Guadalajara Open last year. This is her third US Open appearance, having reached the second round in each of the past 2 editions. She is already the 4th-ranked American woman, behind Jessica Pegula, Coco Gauff, and Amanda Anisimova. The two are good friends off the court. They have teamed up in doubles, reaching the semi-finals of the ASB Classic in Auckland, New Zealand earlier this year. They were even featured in a US Open video eating Filipino snacks together. She's a great friend of mine, and I'm very grateful for her, Jovic had said after their match at the HSBC Championships. But on the court, friendship is set aside. The two had faced each other twice in 2026, at the French Open and at the HSBC Championships. Jovic had won both matches convincingly. At Roland Garros, she won 6-4, 6-2. At Queen's Club, she dominated 6-2, 6-2. Eala, who had arrived at the Queen's Club fresh from winning her maiden WTA 125 title on grass at the Lexus Birmingham Open, was riding a 6-match winning streak. But Jovic dropped just 4 games in a commanding display. The head-to-head record was 0-2. The tennis world had every reason to expect a 3rd straight victory for the American. But something had changed since their last meeting. Eala had just climbed to a career-high world number 18 ranking. She had won her first WTA Tour title in Washington. She had reached the fourth round at Wimbledon, stunning defending champion Iga Swiatek on center court. She had sold out every match at the Canadian Open. She was no longer the player who had lost to Jovic twice in straight sets. She was a player on mission, a player ready to prove that the past was just that, the past. August 27, 2026. Arthur Ashe Stadium. The stars of the Open exhibition. The event featured some of the most exciting young talents in tennis. Amanda Anisimova took on Marta Kostyuk. Flavio Cobolli battled Lerner Tien. Arthur Ashe faced Alex Michelsen. But the match everyone was waiting for was Eala versus Jovic. The crowd was electric. Thousands of Filipino fans had filled the stadium, their flags waving proudly, their chants of Laban, Alex, echoing through the arena. It was reminiscent of what had happened at the Australian Open, when organizers had placed Eala on court 6, one of the tournament's smaller courts, and security had to turn away thousands of fans who couldn't get in. Former world no. One Lindsay Davenport had noted the phenomenon at the Australian Open. She probably needed to be on a bigger show court. She's, I think, probably the most famous female from the Philippines, certainly one of the most famous people ever to come through their sporting world, and there were so many fans here who were just waiting to get in there. Martina Navratilova, the 18-time Grand Slam champion, had been even more direct. The organizers need to keep more in mind where the players are from and what the actual fan base is here. Because there's massive Filipino audience in Melbourne, in Australia. So keep that in mind next time you make the schedule. The US Open had learned its lesson. Eala was on the biggest court in tennis. And she delivered. The match was a statement. A declaration that the two previous losses to Jovic were ancient history. A reminder that Eala was a completely different player now. From the very first point, Eala took control. Her left-handed forehand was devastating. Her movement was effortless. Her mental fortitude was unshakable. She was playing with the confidence of someone who knew she belonged on this stage. Jovic, for her part, fought back. She was a world number 14, a player who had beaten Eala twice before. She knew she could win. But this time, something was different. Eala wasn't the same player who had lost in Paris and London. She was faster, stronger, more determined. The crowd roared with every Eala winner. The Filipino flags waved with every changeover. The chants grew louder with every passing moment. Her following, the fans that just come to watch her not just play her match, but to watch her practice, is off the charts. Mary Jo Fernandez, the former world number 4, had said. It's just gotten bigger and bigger everywhere she goes. It's almost like she's playing a Billie Jean King Cup match when she's out there, Fernandez added. Every point is loud. Every point she wins, it feels like she's won more than a point. Eala's performance was a preview of what was to come in the main draw. She was seeded for the second straight time at a Grand Slam. The main draw would begin on August 30th, and Eala was poised to be one of its biggest attractions. With the U.S. Open's record prize pool of $108 million and champions taking home $5.5 million, the stakes could not have been higher. But before the main draw, Eala had made her point. She had shown the world, and her friend, that she was ready for the biggest stage. The ticket frenzy surrounding the U.S. Open had already made headlines. More than 300,000 New Yorkers had swarmed a website for just 1,000 cut price tickets. The average ticket price had soared to $617. A grounds pass was being resold for $363 on the secondary market, nearly 6 times the original price. And Patrick McEnroe's warning had been heard loud and clear. The USTA better make sure they put her on big courts, McEnroe had said. I think the crowd is going to be wild for her. It's going to be a great story. Better make sure they don't pooth her on one of those side courts early in the tournament. The warning came from history. At the Australian Open, organizers had placed Eala on court 6, not anticipating the massive crowd that would turn up. Lines of fans stretched around Melbourne Park, and security had to turn away thousands more hoping to get inside. Martina Navratilova had been even more direct. The organizers need to keep more in mind where the players are from and what the actual fan base is here. Because there's massive Filipino audience in Melbourne, in Australia. So keep that in mind next time you make the schedule. The US Open had listened. Eala was on the biggest court in tennis, and the crowd was wild. I think she loves the big stage, Greg Rosetsky had said. There's certain players who love walking on Arthur Ashe Stadium, who like to play on the big stadiums, who want to be on the big stadiums. That's what I feel with Eala, that she wants to be there, and she will get her success because of all the work she does. The Stars of the Open was just a preview. The main draw was still to come. But the message was clear. Alex Eala had arrived, and she was here to stay. With the exhibition behind her, Eala will now focus entirely on the singles campaign. She is seeded number 17 at the US Open, surpassing her number 29 seeding at Wimbledon, where she became the first Filipino player to be seeded in a Grand Slam singles. The main draw matches begin on August 30th. Both Eala and Jovic are seeded in this US Open and could clash in the third round if they get past their first two matches. But for now, the focus is on the present. On the next match, on the journey ahead, Eala has faced tougher odds before. She has beaten Grand Slam champions. She has come back from deficits that would break lesser players. She has carried the hopes of a nation on her shoulders and never once faltered. But Eala has also been preparing for this moment in the most unexpected way. Aside from the friendly tiff with Jovic, Eala has been fine-tuning her bearings in practice sessions with two-time U.S. Open champion Venus Williams ahead of the biggest tournament of her blooming career yet. The opportunity to learn from one of the greatest champions in tennis history is invaluable. From the Royal Box, hours after her foiled U.S. Open mixed doubles debut, Eala was among the spectators in an iconic duel that marked the tennis return of the Swiss legend Roger Federer since retiring in 2022. She had watched the legends. Now, she was ready to become one. Eala's performance at the Stars of the Open was more than just a win. It was a recognition of her status as a global icon, a symbol of hope and inspiration for millions of people around the world. The numbers told the story. She had packed stadiums wherever she went. She had drawn massive crowds, sold out tournaments, and brought new fans to the sport. She had become the WTA's big ticket. Eala Mania had begun at the Australian Open, when long lines of fans wrapped around walkways outside her matches. It had continued in Abu Dhabi, Doha, and Wimbledon. It had reached new heights at the Canadian Open, where every match she played sold out. And now, in New York, it had reached a fever pitch. Eala's merchandise had sold out within minutes, while new merchandise for Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, and Aryna Sabalenka remained available. The achievement was unprecedented. At 21 years old, Eala was already outselling players who had been global icons for years. Alex Eala's popularity soars further as her outfit for the U.S. Open sells out ahead of any other player, one report noted. The Filipina superstar has been the WTA's big ticket the last 2 years. From the cracked courts of Quezon City, where tennis was a luxury, to the center courts of New York, where she had become the biggest draw in women's tennis, Alexandra Eala had proven that champions don't just win matches, they move mountains. She arrives like rain on parched land, one observer wrote. She is a blessing for a people clinging to the last shreds of hope. Former U.S. Open finalist Greg Rosetsky had already predicted that Eala could reach the quarterfinals or even semifinals at the U.S. Open, praising her mentality as second to none. I think she loves the big stage, Rosetsky said. There's certain players who love walking on Arthur Ashe Stadium, who like to play on the big stadiums, who want to be on the big stadiums. That's what I feel with Eala, that she wants to be there, and she will get her success because of all the work she does. At the Stars of the Open, she had proven something else. Iva Jovic couldn't handle her. The 0-2 record was history. The future had arrived, and Alex Eala was just getting started. From the cracked courts of Quezon City to the center courts of New York, where she had become the biggest draw in women's tennis, Alexandra Eala had proven that champions don't just win matches, they move mountains. And when she faced her friend Iva Jovic at the Stars of the Open, she showed the world that she was no longer the player who had lost twice before. She was a champion. The tennis world was stunned, and Alex Eala was just getting started.